Happy 20th anniversary to Monster Hunter, and who can believe we've already had over 20 years of playing this amazing franchise. The game has filled so many of us with joyous moments, and it doesn't look like it's going to be slowing down with the release of Monster Hunter Wilds in 2025. With the recent 20th anniversary and Capcom's highlight stream, there is a ton of news and interesting information, like the big old top 10 monsters of all time as voted by players, but also because it is the 20th anniversary, let's play a little game. We want to know what was the first ever weapon you used, and are you still maining that weapon? I know I've definitely gone through a bunch of different options in my Monster Hunter playtime, but do tell us yours below. So we'll start off with the very exciting top 10 monsters of all time. In case you missed it initially, Capcom were running a vote where us in the community, we could vote on which monsters we felt were the best from the full roster of all the monsters in the franchise. There are some very surprising ones in this top 10 list, so let's get into it. The number 10 spot is going to Alatreon or Alatreon, depending on how you want to say it, and I remember when this monster first dropped for Monster Hunter World and people had a real hard time passing that elemental damage check. It was awesome to see the community really come together for this one, instead of just roasting each other as you might have expected. Instead, everyone was helping each other out, getting into lobbies together and teaching each other the different mechanics, and overall that fight was a real blast to learn and master. And then who would have thought it, at number 9, it's Ruiner Nergigante. We're pretty surprised that this one made it so high up on the list, being a world monster and a variant, but the fact that they locked you into a pretty small arena to fight this guy for the first time did make it pretty funny, and perhaps that's why this was quite a memorable one that people voted for. And then we have number 8, which is Fatalis. Fatalis is a monster that they need to continue to add into every Monster Hunter game in our opinion. It is such a cool fight, especially the one in World being the more recent in memory, but it did even make appearances in spin-offs like Stories. Of course, Fatalis is a more traditionally designed dragon, which actually makes it stand out a little more in the world of Monster Hunter, but just because of how iconic and difficult and threatening Fatalis is, we absolutely love that it made it into the top 10. And for number 7, we have Nagakuga, one of the coolest monsters in the game that isn't an Elder Dragon and just has this presence of its own that makes it a real awesome monster to fight. That, along with the fact that its weapons are usually some of the more useful ones, make this a pretty top tier monster, so we're very happy Nagakuga also made it into the top 10. For number 6, we have Velkhana, another surprise to see so high up in the list, but we can understand why, because it is super majestic and a very cool looking designed monster. Its weapons and armor were also incredibly designed, as well as it being a flagship of Iceborne. This is a very cool monster that I really enjoyed, and I actually really like how they implemented this one into Monster Hunter Stories too. So personally, I'm actually very happy that Velkhana made it quite high up in the list, but it was quite a surprise to me. And then at number 5 is Gore Magala, one of our absolute favorites with an awesome aesthetic and awesome mechanics. Gore Magala is a real joy to fight. Personally, we hoped that Gore would make it a little higher up in the list because of how cool it is, but at 5th place, that is pretty respectable. And then at number 4, we have Valstrax, one of the more unusual monsters, but the fact that it had that awesome CGI intro of it flying in at Mach 10 made this monster a super top tier pick, and every time we see it fly off, even though we know what's coming and we know what to do, it still has us quaking in our boots. So we do love the Jet Dragon Boy Valstrax. And then at number 3, it's Lagiacrus, and you know it's a good monster when people want a whole gameplay feature added back in to support it. We absolutely loved fighting this monster, even though it hasn't been in a new Monster Hunter game in a little while. It has become a bit of an icon for the Monster Hunter franchise and for many fans, in particular with it being themed around water and the underwater combat. When this monster eventually makes its return, you know it's going to be glorious. And at number 2, we have Nergigante. We absolutely loved this monster, and if you are in the community, you either fall on the side of thinking this fight was either really super hard or really super easy. And we think this is why this monster is a top tier contender for the best monster of all time, as it's all about learning the monster's moves, patterns, and weaknesses. If you don't know how to handle Nergigante, you really do get clapped, but once you start to get to grips with its different mechanics and particularly how its spikes function, you can destroy it in epic style. It's also nice to see the world flagship on the list, considering it is a newer monster, and well, it is pretty iconic both in how it functions in the game's story and in the fight. And at the number 1 spot, we have Zinogre. We can finally say that Zinogre is the greatest monster of all time. From Zinogre's amazing looks to its awesome howl, and of course the lightning that goes over the top of this monster, it definitely deserves that top spot. It does seem the Monster Hunter community has a thing for lightning types, so we're excited to see what lightning monsters we'll be getting next. We think to make the perfect monster, it might need to be a thunder-based monster, but with features similar to Nergigante and the glowing red eyes of Nagakuga, but also perhaps ice and fire breath with a damage check. But what do you think about mixing various features of monsters together to make kind of like an ultimate monster based on the top voted picks? And honestly, what did you think of this list in general? To be honest, we thought it was pretty decent and somewhat close to what you would expect. But I expect this doesn't match your own personal list of the top 10 monsters, so tell us your top 10 down below, and did it match up with the community's vote? This, however, isn't the only news, as they have also announced that there will be a Street Fighter and Monster Hunter collaboration happening in Street Fighter 6. Players will be able to rock the Rathalos armor, and there will be a photo spot where you can rock your best gear with a Rathalos in the background. I really wish that Monster Hunter and Smash Bros had a collab though that would be getting us the fighter, not just the boss's appearance. Hopefully in Monster Hunter Wilds there will be tons of collabs too, as we felt that Rise didn't really scratch that itch when it comes to those really cool collabs. We also think a collab between Monster Hunter and Nier needs to happen because 2B is pretty much in every game now. On top of this, we know that Monster Hunter Stories was getting a remake with the added gallery mode and extra VO, but now we have a release date. It's going to be landing on PC, Nintendo Switch, and PlayStation 4 on June 14th. So if you're into your turn-based RPGs, this is your time to shine. And alongside that, they announced that Monster Hunter Stories 2 will also be getting released on PlayStation 4 on the same day. And having played and completely finished it ourselves, we can 100% recommend Stories 2 as a great game. To be honest, we think it's kind of underrated, and we're sure that you will love it if you like your creature collecting games similar to Pokemon. Lastly, we have some good news for the franchise as a whole. Monster Hunter World has passed 25 million sales, making it a real behemoth for Capcom, and it's incredible news for those of us that want to see the franchise be very healthy and keep rolling forwards. So with the release of Monster Hunter Wilds on the horizon for 2025, how well do you think Wilds will sell? And make sure to subscribe for plenty more Monster Hunter related content coming your way soon.